Welcome back. We are uncovering SCARF,
Scarf World.
the SCARF world. We're back in it. So we had the intro, we had status, win, gotta win. We had certainty, predict the future.
You gotta
And
know.
gotta win, gotta know. Boy, doesn't it sound familiar? This is very familiar because this is what we're born into. This is the way it is, not good or bad. It's just the way it is.
It's the operating system of human being.
Thank goodness for Mr. Rock because he really was passionate about figuring all this stuff out and coming up with something that we can look at and conceptualize and be like, wow.
Yeah. I'm
Right?
not the only one.
I'm not the only one. And there's a freedom to that. So hopefully you're sensing that as you go through these sessions, that freedom that comes from, I thought I was crazy, but I'm not really crazy. Now I understand what was driving me nuts over here.
Here's what's crazy. When you cheat to win. That is crazy.
Did you see how he did that, y'all? When you cheat, and he paused, to win.
And think of, probably people have thought, oh yeah, man, growing up in school, I hated kids that cheated. Oh man, that was terrible. I never did that, but I hated kids that cheated. Why would they do that? Because they wanted to win. Oh
Yeah.
man, it's so funny. You
Oh,
know, I
my
used
goodness.
to teach a little tennis class to kids, and we'd do a warm up. Oh, first, second graders probably. One of the warm ups we'd do would be a little race, a race. And it's just unbelievably funny how no matter who the kid is, there's a certain age where when they know it's going to be a race, they line up, but then there's somebody that kind of edges over the line. They can't quite wait to stay at the line. And then somebody else does. And then somebody else does. And before you know it, you got one kid and he's 5 or 6 feet ahead of everybody. I still haven't said go yet. And I'm going, now wait a second. What are you doing there? It's just inbred. We just got to win.
That's a great example. So today, Tim, I'm excited about today because you're going to talk about the A in SCARF, which is autonomy.
Autonomy, yeah. If one word can describe the status need, which is to win or rank higher than your peer, and certainty is about knowing, autonomy is about being able to control your environment, your surroundings, that you have some control, some say about how things are going around you.
It's interesting. The first thing that popped into my mind, control. What comes first, control or certainty?
It's interesting you say that because sometimes people ask that question. If you look in a company, somebody who works at the company, let's say an employee comes in, and they may be certain what their day is going to look like, but they are also certain they have no control over what their day looks like because somebody else has told them what their responsibilities are, what their expectations are, and what they're going to do. So control over events would be basically calling the shots, being in charge. It's also very interesting. They've done studies as to relative importance of these to people. Autonomy, surprisingly enough, is the lowest one. The fewest number of people say that autonomy is the most important thing to them, which is really interesting. And these are people generally who are entrepreneurs because they don't want a boss. Again, you think of the boss as being the one who is in control, and they have the autonomy. So what they say goes. What the person will do, because there's a risk to being the boss, because you're out there and the world is not as certain as you'd like it to be. So the reason people, in a sense, sell their need for autonomy is they exchange it for their need for certainty. And that's why most people, quote unquote, punch a clock, work at a company, make sure that they've got the paycheck coming in every 2 weeks.
Yes.
They can plan and they can schedule. But there's a certain number, and it's funny, the number of people that are driven by autonomy primarily or have that most important is only about 4 or 5% out of 100.
Did you all see the light bulb go off for me? I mean, that was my corporate life.
Yeah.
The key for me is I didn't want a boss anymore.
Yeah.
I was like, no. And it's just dawning on me.
But it took you a while to get to the point where you said, take this job and shove it. It's interesting. People will say, well, I can't afford to say that. I've got to have it because I got a mortgage payment and I got kids in college and I got braces that they need and all these things that people need. you got to a point in your career where you could say, that's it, I'm out of here. And I'm going to call the shots in my life. And so that autonomy need or that autonomy desire started to well up in you.
It's so interesting, Tim. Speaking from my own experience, it's a powerful one that can drive creativity, the good stuff to get a person out of, well, I'm in the box and this is it's good, it's okay, it's average, but I'm fine with average, and because it's certainty versus the autonomy is kind of scary.
That's right.
But
It
I
is.
think like the autonomy is where the power, the creativity, the individual gifts that we all have can express. So if we collectively, like you talked about in the last session, it's a collaboration with your organization, your company, your business. What if you could have that autonomy spirit within an organization without this control?
What if each individual person on the team felt like and was treated like they were the boss, or they were the owner, or they were in control of their day? A lot of times people leave a company because somebody's looking over their shoulder. Well, they needed the job, so they took it, but then they get to a point. But what if as a leader, you can understand the need for autonomy, and this is what Rock sells big time in his consultancies, is how to make people feel autonomous at their job, because that can spark creativity and innovation and all those things that companies say they want. They want their people to be innovative, but the people say, well, you are always telling us what to do, how can we be innovative? Companies are kind of always trying to balance these.
The need to control, the need to certainty. There are opportunities.
The autonomy need is the need to be independent. So when someone feels like they're independent, they're in control of their environment, they're in control of their surroundings, they're independent. They don't need to depend on somebody else. I'll call the shots, I'm in charge, I'm in control. Well, think about the United States of America. Back in the day, what do we have? We have something called the Declaration of Independence. The founding fathers of this country took a gamble, took a leap, took a risk. It wasn't easy, but they said, give me liberty or give me death. That was Patrick Henry's big speech. What he was saying is, give me autonomy or give me death. But a lot of times, autonomy, it feels like freedom. So when the kid who's been in their parents' house, for example, for the 18 years of schooling, when they get away at college, I live in Lincoln, Nebraska, where, there's a big school right here. When they get away, I mean, what it was like. It's just like a rush of exhilaration of freedom. Now I can go as I please. I don't have mom and dad hanging over me anymore. Well, here's the problem in corporate America. The employee feels like the kid that's still under the thumb of the mom and the dad. And now who's the mom and the dad? Their supervisor, their boss, their manager. And so that's why the creative spirit, the innovative spirit that is in all of us is snuffed out oftentimes inside the corporate environment. People, it's like, oh, brother, here I am back again. It feels like I'm just back home with mom and dad and I'm under their thumb, but it's just a different person. It's the boss.
Yes, 100%. And you said you feel like you're independent, and feelings are fickle.
Yeah, I mean, to some extent, it could be, your feeling could be a little deceptive. One possible interpretation. Another one is that you can act in the face of your feelings. That's what a lot of people do. They may feel like the boss is terrible and they don't want to be around him, but they still come to work and they still do what the boss wants them to do, and they kind of rise above it. And then when they go to the happy hour and they're hanging out with their chums from the office, oh boy, old Johnson, they can do that. The question would be, feelings are important. I mean, they're not just illusory. They're a chemical indication of something.
Well, what we're after is when you get to the bar, things don't change.
Yeah, and you're hanging out with your boss at the bar. You don't necessarily feel, and a lot of times bosses know this, bosses understand this. At some point, what SCARF could create in a company is a lot of structure and a lot of, in a sense, certainty. You just kind of put all these rules together. What we're actually doing by talking about creating another alternative is actually being creative in the culture of a company. And instead of saying, if you don't create a culture, you're just going to have SCARF. I mean, that's the default culture.
Huh.
People are going to be run by status, certainty, autonomy, related, and fairness. They're going to figure out what they need to do. They're going to work until they can afford to quit. You're not going to get the best out of them, but you're going to get 50 to 60% of the best out of them. And that's about the most you can expect. But what we're saying, and this is why this is revolutionary, is no, what if you got 100%? What if you could create a culture? Talk about 100%, 100%. What if you could create a culture where people brought 100% of themselves to work every day? Where all this stuff about SCARF and all this was out in the open, everybody understood all their buttons. That's not an issue anymore. And you could create another operating system, and that's what we do. We help you create an operating system for your company that will get you to the point where you're creating a culture where everybody is 100%. So they're not holding anything back, and they're giving you everything they got, and they're sharing in the success of the company in some way. So it's not some tiered necessarily financial. Okay, you're coming in, you get $15 an hour because you're minimum wage. Okay, you get a bump, you're going to get 3%. You're going to go up here, you're going to go up there. Okay, that's predictable. That's certain. That keeps things under control.
Tim, then it goes beyond. So you're in this organization and you're in this new operating system. Well, do you think when you go home you're going to be a little bit different?
Yeah.
Do you think amongst your friends you're going to be a little bit different?
Yeah.
And the mushroom, the butterfly effect. I mean, this is why we get excited, because that's where it starts. We know everything starts with us.
Yeah.
We always say the answer's within you. We believe. I don't know where you're at on your spiritual journey. I believe Holy Spirit is in me.
And I believe the Holy Spirit is not a spirit of independence. And some people say, I just want to be financially independent. Okay. Well, that's not really what you want to be. What you really want to be, and what I think most people want to be, is interdependent. And this is a phrase my mom gave me a long time ago. She was always talking about interdependent. What the heck is that? She says, you don't want to be dependent. So you don't want a culture of dependence where everybody who works there has to run to the boss to get question answered. And, well, we can't do anything unless we get a sign off. And, you don't want a culture of dependence, but you don't really want a culture of independence where everybody is kind of doing their own thing. What you want is a culture of interdependence, where everybody knows what they bring to the party, and everybody knows what everybody else brings to the party, and everybody's working together in a synergistic way to make something happen that wouldn't happen if people weren't all together and working together. And that's the magic and the mystery of a team, kind of where team comes from. Interdependence. I need you, Robert. You need me for this thing to work here, for this little whatever it is we're doing here.
Sure.
I got on the computer. I said, where's Robert? So there you are. Now, if you get on and I'm not there, you say, well, where's Tim? We needed each other to produce this snippet. And then there's an interdependence with my computer company and all the things that have allowed this to happen. And so we, as I was saying before, we actually, in our consulting engagements, we become interdependent with our clients. We work together with our clients. All of us benefit, all of us grow, all of us learn, all of us profit from our effort.
Yes, this is going to sound corny, but we make the world a better place, Tim. I mean, it really does. It's inspiring. It's inspiring.
Well, if the Holy Spirit is about connecting people and about interdependence and bringing together, then if we can do that in a particular company and that spreads out to all the people that work there, and imagine they take it to their environment, there's going to be a ripple effect.
This is the exciting part. Imagine a positive ripple going out into the world. They won't report that on the news. That's the negative ripples that get reported out in the news. But we're a little bit different over here at Life Transform Global Coaching and Consulting. We're a little bit different. We're going to be counterculture. We're going to be a little bit out there. I think that's where the good stuff is.
I agree. That's why we're here. We both are out there.
Oh, okay. So, Tim, anything else on autonomy?
I would say, even though people say that it's the least important for them, I think deep down in their hearts, everybody kind of wants to be in charge. And living in America, especially, if you're in an American culture, American, you think back to the days of the Marlboro Man, we kind of have this, the Lone Ranger. Now, even the Lone Ranger had a sidekick, which I've never understood. We kind of have, have a Declaration of Independence. I think it's hard for us in this country to give up our drive for autonomy. There are other cultures, I think, where they've been able to kind of make the team more important than the individual. In the United States, the individual is still kind of the king, and the individual approach is the kind of the desired approach. But there's a lot of value in learning from what other cultures do in this area.
What struck me as you were talking, Tim, is maybe in the autonomy is where your true purpose is. And that's why, like you said, it may be very important, but it's tucked within, because I didn't discover my true purpose until I got into that autonomy state, if you
That's
will.
interesting. Yeah, I have to, yeah, I kind of like that. It is something to ponder. If you're going to fuel, because to some extent, each person, you always ask people, what's your big dream? A lot of people will tell you, and I meet with people all the time as a coach who they're working and they're making a living. I talk to them about how things are going. Well, until something better comes along, this is this is great until something better comes along.
Yes.
I don't think they found their purpose.
No, that's the reason for what's your big dream.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe if you can develop and not use autonomy as some way to control others, this is what you have to watch out. Because remember, autonomy is about control. Well, who's often within our environment? Other people. So then we feel the need to control other people. And that's hard to do because they have their
Yeah.
autonomy needs as well. I think the thing to look for is what is in the spiritual, what is the healthy, and maybe your idea of autonomy is where you find your purpose, the one thing you were meant to do here on planet Earth, and are you doing it? And that might be a worthwhile pursuit.
Thank you, Holy Spirit.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you all again for joining us. It's been rewarding. Hopefully, it's been rewarding for you all as you're engaging with us and
I'm
seeing
just
us.
so curious and excited about who's going to see this and who's going to be curious and kind of, because it's all going to be Holy Spirit driven. So it's not
100%.
like we're out there going, well, I hope Joe signs up or I hope Johnny does this. Or,
Right.
man, if only Mary would get with us, that'd be great. It's not like that at all. We're just casting our bread upon the water
That's it.
and
That's it.
seeing who, what comes back.
Absolutely. So, Tim, what are we going to next? What's the R?
Well, the R is actually the second most important thing to most people. In other words, when I say second most important, I mean the second greatest number of people, second, had this as their most important thing.
Okay.
And that's relatedness.
Yes.
And relatedness is kind of like liking things, being related, feeling safe. We have a phrase here in some of our networking groups. People like to do business with people who they know, like, and trust. Know, like, and trust.
No,
Well, that's true. That's what relatedness is all about.
Okay.
Is this person a friend or is this person a foe? So it's a friend or foe. And the brain is always trying to figure that out. Is this a friend or is this a foe?
Boy, my brain will short circuit if I think about that too much. So I'm just going to suspend that thought until we get
That's
together
right.
again.
Okay.
All
Sounds
right.
good.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Robert. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we will see you at the next session. Relatedness.